I should have known something was wrong when my twin sister showed up to Christmas dinner wearing a Cartier bracelet worth more than my rent. My name is Skylar, and I'm about to tell you how my own family systematically destroyed my life, and how I made sure they paid for every single penny. Let me paint you a picture of my childhood. Picture this. 2 identical twins, born 3 minutes apart. Lexi came out first, screaming bloody murder and demanding attention. I followed quietly, apparently already resigned to being second place. That pretty much set the tone for the next 28 years. Every ballet recital, every school play, every family gathering. Lexi was the star. She'd pirouette across the stage in her pink tutu while I sat in the audience, watching our parents beam with pride. When report cards came home, Mum would coo over Lexi's C+ in art class, while barely glancing at my straight A's. "Skylar's just naturally smart," Dad would say, ruffling my hair absently. "She doesn't need the encouragement. What I needed was to matter. What I got was a pat on the head and the expectation that I'd always be fine on my own." Our grandfather changed everything when he died 5 years ago. Harold Whitfield was old-school money, the kind of man who wore 3-piece suits to breakfast and believed character was built through adversity. He left each of his grandchildren a trust fund, substantial ones. Mine, Lexi's, and our younger brother Zachary's was supposed to be managed by Uncle Jeffrey until we turned 30. Equal shares, Grandfather had said in his will, to give each child the foundation for a meaningful life. I remember the day Jeffrey explained the trust to us. We were all sitting in his mahogany-panelled office, the kind of place that smelled like leather and old money. Lexi was texting throughout the entire meeting, her manicured nails clicking against her phone screen. "The funds will be distributed monthly," Jeffrey said, sliding papers across his desk. "Enough to cover living expenses, education, and reasonable lifestyle costs." "Define reasonable," Lexi had said, finally looking up from her phone. Jeffrey smiled indulgently. "Don't worry, sweetheart. You'll be well taken care of." That should have been my first red flag. For the first year, everything seemed normal. I used my monthly distribution to pay for my tiny studio apartment, groceries, and to save for law school. Lexi moved into a trendy loft downtown and started what she called her lifestyle brand, basically posting Instagram photos of her brunch plates and designer handbags. But then I started noticing things. Lexi's apartment got bigger. Her clothes got more expensive. Her vacations got more exotic. Meanwhile, my monthly distribution stayed exactly the same, barely enough to cover rent and ramen noodles. "Mum," I said one evening, when I'd worked up the courage to visit their house, "I think there might be an issue with my trust fund." She was arranging flowers in the foyer, the kind of elaborate arrangement that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "What kind of issue, honey? The amount seems smaller than it should be, and Lexi's lifestyle seems to be getting more expensive every month." Mum's hands stilled on the roses. "Skylar, you know your sister has different needs than you do." "Different needs?" "Lexi's building her brand. She needs to maintain a certain image. You're more practical. You've always been good with money." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Are you saying her trust fund is bigger than mine?" "I'm saying Jeffrey knows what he's doing. He's making sure both of you are taken care of appropriately." Dad walked in then, loosening his tie after another day at his consulting firm. "What's going on?" "Skylar's worried about money," Mum said, her tone suggesting I was being dramatic. "You'll be fine, kiddo," Dad said, not even looking at me as he headed for his study. "You always land on your feet." That night, I sat in my studio apartment eating cereal for dinner and staring at my bank statement. The numbers didn't lie. While Lexi was posting photos from Cabo, I was counting quarters to do laundry. I pulled out my laptop and started researching trust fund law. What I found made my blood run cold. Executors had broad discretion in fund management, but they were supposed to act in the beneficiary's best interests. All beneficiaries. I sent myself an email that night, the subject line reading, "I think they're stealing from me." I had no idea the email would become the first piece of evidence in the case that would destroy my entire family. 6 months later, I was working double shifts at a coffee shop while Lexi bought a BMW. "Can you believe this weather?" my co-worker Janet said, wiping down the espresso machine. "Perfect day for the beach." I nodded, calculating tips in my head. $43. Enough for groceries if I stuck to the clearance section. The bell above the door chimed, and my stomach dropped. Lexi strutted in wearing a sundress that probably cost more than I made in a week. Designer sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. "Oh my God, Skylar!" She rushed over, her heels clicking on the tile floor. "I didn't know you worked here." "Yeah, well, someone has to pay the bills." She ordered a complicated drink, oat milk latte with vanilla syrup and extra foam, then leaned against the counter while I made it. "So I have the most amazing news," she said, pulling out her phone. "Look at this." The screen showed a sleek black BMW convertible with a giant red bow on the hood. "Early birthday present from Uncle Jeffrey," she squealed. "He said I deserve something special after all my hard work on the brand." I nearly dropped the milk steamer. "He bought you a car?" "Well, technically the trust bought it. But Jeffrey said it was a business expense since I need reliable transportation for meetings." "What meetings?" Lexi waved her hand dismissively. "Influencer stuff. You wouldn't understand." I finished her drink with shaking hands and slid it across the counter. "That'll be $6.50. "Oh, can you just comp it? Family discount?" She winked. "I can't comp drinks, Lexi." She sighed dramatically and pulled out a credit card, black, with her name embossed in gold letters. "Fine, but this is so awkward." After she left, I stood there staring at the credit card receipt. The name on the card wasn't just Lexi Ramos. It was Lexi Ramos, Whitfield Trust Account. That evening, I spread law school applications across my tiny kitchen table. The deadlines were approaching fast, and I still needed to figure out how to pay for the LSAT prep course. My phone buzzed. A text from Mum. "Family dinner Sunday, 6 p.m, don't be late." Sunday dinner at my parents' house was always an exercise in feeling inadequate, but I went anyway. Maybe I was a glutton for punishment. I arrived to find Lexi already there, showing off her new jewellery to Mom in the living room. "These are from that little boutique in Soho," Lexi was saying, turning her wrist to catch the light on a tennis bracelet. "The owner personally selected them for me." "They're gorgeous, sweetheart," Mom cooed. "You have such exquisite taste." I cleared my throat. "Hey, everyone." "Skylar," Dad called from his recliner. "How's the coffee business?" "It's fine. Actually, I wanted to talk to you all about something." Lexi looked up from her bracelet display. "Please tell me you're not going to lecture us about money again." "I'm not lecturing anyone. I'm asking questions." I pulled out a folder I'd been preparing. "I've been looking into trust fund regulations, and I think there might be some irregularities in how mine is being managed." The room went quiet except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. "What kind of irregularities?" Dad asked, his voice careful. "Well, for starters, Lexi just got a BMW charged to her trust account as a business expense. Meanwhile, I can barely afford groceries." "Lexi's building something," Mum said sharply. "She needs investment capital." "Investment capital for what?" "Instagram posts." Lexi stood up, her face flushed. "Excuse me? My brand is a legitimate business venture." "What business? You post pictures of your breakfast?" "I have over 50,000 followers." "Followers don't pay the bills, Lexi." "Girls, please," Dad said. But his voice lacked conviction. Mum crossed her arms. "Skylar, your sister has different needs than you do. She's always been more social, more creative. She needs resources to nurture those gifts." "And what about my gifts? What about law school?" "You're smart enough to get scholarships," Mum said. "You don't need handouts." The word handouts hit me like a slap. "It's not a handout. It's my inheritance." "It's family money," Dad said quietly. "And family takes care of family." "Then why am I working 60 hours a week while Lexi gets cars and jewellery?" Lexi threw her hands up. "Because you're bitter and jealous. You've always resented that people actually like me." "People like your money, Lexi. There's a difference." She gasped, like I'd physically struck her. "How dare you?" "Enough." Mum stood between us. "Skylar, I think you should leave." I stared at her, my own mother, choosing sides like she had my entire life. Fine. But this isn't over. As I walked to my beat-up Honda, I heard Lexi crying inside, Mum comforting her with soothing words she'd never used for me. That night, I called every legal aid clinic in the city until I found someone willing to talk. Marcus Young, an estate attorney, agreed to meet me for coffee. Bring everything, he said. Bank statements, trust documents, anything you can find. I hung up and looked around my studio apartment. On my desk sat a framed photo of grandfather from his funeral. He'd always talked about integrity, about earning what you received. They don't realize what they've created, I whispered to his picture. The next morning, I found something that changed everything. Hidden in my old college textbooks was a folder I'd forgotten about. Documents from grandfather's estate that Jeffrey had given me years ago. Most of it was standard legal language, but one page made my heart race. It was a partial copy of the will, and at the bottom, cut off mid-sentence, were the words, "In the event of fraudulent or dishonest behaviour by any beneficiary." The rest was missing, but I knew Jeffrey had the complete version locked away in his office. I was going to find it. Marcus Young's office smelled like old books and fresh coffee. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe late 30s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "So you think your uncle is embezzling from your trust fund?" he asked, spreading my documents across his desk. "I don't think it. I know it." I pulled out my phone and showed him Lexi's Instagram. "This is from last week. She's in the Maldives. The week before she was shopping in Milan." Marcus scrolled through the photos, his eyebrows rising. "And your monthly distribution is?" $1,800, barely covers rent. While hers appears to be... He gestured at a photo of Lexi in a private jet. "Considerably more. The thing is, I found this." I handed him the partial will document. "It mentions something about fraudulent behaviour, but the rest is cut off." Marcus studied the paper carefully. "This is interesting, very interesting, but we need the complete document. Jeffrey has it locked in his office safe. Then we need to find another way to get it." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "What about the original lawyer who drafted the will?" "Matthew Murphy. He's still practicing, but he works closely with Jeffrey now." "Perfect. Let me make a call." While Marcus worked his legal magic, I threw myself into survival mode. I picked up a second job waiting tables at a diner, working nights after my coffee shop shifts. The money was terrible, but every dollar counted. My friend Fatima found me there one evening, dead on my feet after a 14-hour day. "Skylar, what the hell?" She slid into a booth, her nurse scrubs wrinkled from her own long shift. "You look like death." "Thanks for the pep talk." I poured her coffee without being asked. "I'm serious. When's the last time you slept?" "Sleep is for people who don't have to pay rent in quarters." Fatima grabbed my wrist. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" I glanced around the empty diner, then sat across from her. "My family is stealing from me." "What do you mean stealing?" I told her everything. The trust fund, Lexi's lifestyle, my parents' dismissal, the partial will document. Fatima listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. "Those bastards," she said finally. "Your own family? The worst part is they act like I'm being unreasonable, like I should be grateful for scraps while Lexi lives like a princess." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to get what's mine. All of it." The next week, Marcus called with news. "I spoke with Matthew Murphy. He's willing to meet, but he's nervous about discussing the trust without Jeffrey present." "Can you get him to talk?" "Maybe, but I need you to be very careful about what you say. We can't let Jeffrey know we're investigating." The meeting was set for the following Tuesday at Matthew's downtown office. I took the morning off from both jobs, which meant losing money I couldn't afford to lose. Matthew Murphy was exactly what you'd expect from a trust fund lawyer. Expensive suit, perfect teeth, and the kind of handshake that said he'd never worried about rent money. "Miss Schuyler," he said, gesturing to a leather chair. "Marcus tells me you have some questions about your grandfather's estate." "Just trying to understand the distribution structure," I said carefully. "It seems like there might be some discrepancies." Matthew's smile flickered. "Discrepancies?" "The monthly amounts don't seem to match what I understood from the original will." "Well, Jeffrey has broad discretionary powers as executor. He's authorized to adjust distributions based on individual needs and circumstances. What kind of circumstances? Matthew glanced at Marcus, then back at me. Educational expenses, business investments, lifestyle maintenance. Your sister's brand development, for instance, requires significant capital investment. And my law school plans? Have you formally applied? Submitted a business plan for your education? I felt heat rise in my cheeks. I didn't know I needed a business plan to use my own inheritance for school. It's not quite that simple, Matthew said. The trust has specific guidelines about educational disbursements. Can I see those guidelines? Another glance at Marcus. I'd need to check with Jeffrey about releasing additional documentation. Of course you would. Marcus stepped in smoothly. What about the integrity provisions? I believe Harold mentioned something about character requirements for beneficiaries. Matthew went very still. I'm not sure what you mean. The clause about fraudulent behaviour. It was mentioned in some preliminary documents. I really can't discuss specific provisions without Jeffrey's approval. But his face had gone pale, and I knew we'd hit something important. That evening, I was walking home from my diner shift when I saw them. Lexi and her best friend Kinley stumbling out of an upscale cocktail bar, clearly drunk and laughing loudly. Skylar! Lexi spotted me and waved dramatically. Oh my God, you look so tired, Kinley giggled. Is that your work uniform? I looked down at my stained apron and polyester dress. Yeah, some of us have jobs. Jobs are so overrated, Lexi said, swaying slightly. I made $3,000 today just posting about face masks. $3,000? Brand partnership, Kinley explained. Lexi's rate is like $500 per post now. Plus, Uncle Jeffrey approved a new marketing budget, Lexi added. $20,000 for brand development. My vision went red. $20,000? Don't be jealous, Skylar. Not everyone can be an influencer. You're right, I said quietly. Not everyone can steal from their family and call it a career. Lexi's face twisted. Excuse me? You heard me. I'm not stealing anything. This is my money. Is it? Because last I checked, we were supposed to have equal trusts. Kinley stepped between us. Maybe we should go, Lex. No, I want to hear this, Lexi said, her voice getting louder. Tell me how I'm stealing, Skylar. Tell me how your boring, bitter life is somehow my fault. People were starting to stare. A few had their phones out. You want to know the truth? I stepped closer. You're a spoiled brat who's never worked a day in her life, and you're bleeding our grandfather's legacy dry while I work 60 hours a week just to survive. At least I'm not a jealous loser who can't stand to see her sister succeed. Succeed at what? Taking selfies? Lexi threw her drink at me. The cold liquid hit my chest, soaking through my uniform. You're pathetic, she hissed. No wonder Mom and Dad don't care about you. I stood there dripping, surrounded by strangers with cameras, while my twin sister laughed at my humiliation. You're right, I said finally. I am pathetic, but not for the reasons you think. I walked away, leaving them giggling behind me. But as I turned the corner, I heard Kinley say something that made me stop. God, Lex, you're so lucky your uncle hooked you up with that trust fund access. Most people have to wait until they're 30. I know, right? Jeffrey's the best. He totally gets that I need the money now, not later. I pulled out my phone and started recording. The next morning, Marcus called with the breakthrough we'd been waiting for. I know how to get into that safe, he said, but you're not going to like it. Try me. We're going to need Jeffrey's fingerprints. You want me to steal my uncle's fingerprints? I stared at Marcus across his desk. Not steal, borrow. He pulled out a small device that looked like a smartphone case. This scanner can lift prints from any smooth surface. Coffee cup, wine glass, door handle. This feels very illegal. It's a grey area, but if Jeffrey is embezzling from your trust, we need proof. I took the scanner, my hands shaking slightly. How do I even get close enough to him? Family dinner? Holiday party? Any social situation where he'd handle glassware? Perfect timing. Mum had texted that morning about Thanksgiving dinner. Actually, I might have an opportunity. 3 days later, I stood in my parents' kitchen, scanner hidden in my purse, watching Jeffrey carve the turkey like he owned the place. Skylar, honey, can you help me with the wine? Mom asked. I grabbed the bottle of expensive Bordeaux, probably worth more than my monthly rent, and started pouring. Jeffrey held out his glass first. "Thank you, sweetheart. You know, your mother tells me you're thinking about law school." "Thinking about it, yeah. Expensive endeavour. Have you considered other career paths? Something more practical?" I forced a smile. "Law seems pretty practical to me." Of course, but the debt load these days." He shook his head. "Lexi's approach is much smarter, building wealth through social media, leveraging her natural talents." Right, her natural talents. Lexi bounced into the kitchen wearing a dress that probably cost more than my car. "Are we talking about my brand? I just hit 75,000 followers." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Jeffrey said, raising his glass. "To success." Everyone toasted. I watched Jeffrey's fingers wrap around the crystal stem, leaving perfect prints. After dinner, I volunteered to do dishes. "You all relax. I've got this." I carefully collected Jeffrey's wine glass, wrapping it in a dish towel. In the bathroom, I used Marcus's scanner, watching the green light confirm a successful capture. "Got them," I texted Marcus. "Perfect. Meet me at the office tomorrow at 6 a.m. Jeffrey's law firm occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise. At 6 a.m. on a Saturday, the building was empty, except for security guards who barely looked up from their newspapers. Marcus had somehow gotten us access. I didn't ask how. We took the elevator to the 15th floor, my heart pounding with each ding. "His office is down here," Marcus whispered, leading me through a maze of mahogany and marble. Jeffrey's office was exactly what you'd expect. Massive desk, leather chairs, and walls lined with law books that probably hadn't been opened in years. Behind his desk sat a large safe, built into the wall. "There," I pointed. Marcus pulled out the scanner and pressed it against the safe's fingerprint reader. Nothing happened. "Try again," I whispered. He pressed it again. Still nothing. "Maybe the angle's wrong," I suggested. On the 3rd try, the safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of documents, some cash, and several file folders. Marcus grabbed everything while I kept watch at the door. "Holy shit," he breathed, flipping through papers. "Skylar, look at this." He handed me a document titled Whitfield Family Trust, Complete Distribution Records. The numbers made my stomach drop. Over the past 3 years, Lexi had received $847,000 from the trust. I'd received $97,000. "That can't be right," I whispered. "It gets worse." Marcus showed me another page. "Look at the approved expenses. BMW, $85,000. European vacation, $23,000. Apartment deposit and 6 months' rent, $31,000. Designer wardrobe, $18,000. The list went on and on. "She's been living off nearly $1 million while I've been eating ramen," I said. "Keep looking," Marcus said, still digging through files. I found it at the bottom of the stack, the complete will, including the section that had been cut off from my copy. In the event of fraudulent or dishonest behaviour by any beneficiary, or the misuse of trust funds for purposes contrary to the grantor's intentions, said beneficiary shall forfeit their entire share of the trust. The forfeited amount shall be redistributed to the remaining honest beneficiaries, with preference given to those who have demonstrated integrity and responsible financial management. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood. "Marcus," I said quietly, "if Lexi has been using trust money fraudulently, she loses everything, and it all goes to you. What about Jeffrey? He's the one who approved the distributions." Marcus flipped to another section. "Executors who breach their fiduciary duty are subject to criminal prosecution and personal liability for all misappropriated funds." We photographed everything, then carefully returned the documents to the safe. As we left the building, I felt like I was walking on air. "What's our next move?" I asked. "We need more evidence. Recordings, witnesses, documentation of the fraudulent expenses." "I already have some recordings from that night outside the bar." "Good. But we need more. Can you get Lexi to admit to misusing the funds?" "She's not exactly subtle when she's drunk." "Perfect. Set up another encounter. Get her talking about her expenses, how Jeffrey helps her access the money." That afternoon, I called Lexi. "Hey, it's me. I wanted to apologize for Thanksgiving. I was stressed about work. Oh, she sounded surprised. Okay. Want to grab drinks tonight? My treat. Your treat? Can you afford that? I gritted my teeth. I can manage one round. We met at the same upscale bar where she'd thrown her drink at me. I ordered the cheapest wine on the menu and let her get expensive cocktails. So how's the brand going? I asked, phone recording in my purse. Amazing. Jeffrey just approved another marketing budget increase. $25,000 this time. Wow, that's a lot. How does that work exactly? Oh, it's easy. I just tell him what I need for business expenses, and he transfers it from the trust. No questions asked. No questions at all? Well, sometimes he asks for receipts, but honestly, I just make stuff up. Like, I'll say I spent $3,000 on a photo shoot, when really I bought shoes. She giggled. He never checks. That's convenient. I know, right? Mom always said Jeffrey would take care of me, and he totally does. Way better than he takes care of you. What do you mean? Come on, Skylar. You think it's an accident that your distributions are so small? Jeffrey knows you don't need much. You're not building anything important. My hands clenched around my wine glass. And what you're doing is important? Of course. I'm an influencer. I'm building a brand, creating content, inspiring people. By posting pictures of your breakfast. You're so jealous, she slurred, already on her third cocktail. You can't stand that I'm successful and you're not. You're right, I said. I am jealous. Jealous that you get to steal from our grandfather's legacy while I work myself to death. I'm not stealing anything. Then what do you call using trust money to buy designer clothes and calling it a business expense? Lexi's face went red. That's not... Jeffrey said it was fine. Jeffrey said fraud was fine. It's not fraud. It's creative accounting. I smiled and finished my wine. Thanks for clearing that up. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Matthew Murphy. Miss Schuyler, your uncle would like to schedule a family meeting. He says it's time to address your concerns about the trust once and for all. When? This Friday at 2 p.m, his office. I hung up and immediately called Marcus. They're calling a meeting, I said. Perfect. That means they're worried. Are you ready for this? I've been ready for 3 years. Remember, once you play this card, there's no going back. Your family will never forgive you. I thought about Lexi's laughter as she threw her drink at me, about my parents dismissing my concerns, about Jeffrey's condescending smile. Good, I said. I don't want their forgiveness. I want justice. Friday morning, I met Marcus and Fatima at a diner near Jeffrey's office. My hands shook as I tried to eat breakfast. You don't have to do this, Fatima said, squeezing my arm. We could find another way. There is no other way. I pushed eggs around my plate. They've had 3 years to do the right thing. Marcus spread documents across the table. Everything's here. Bank records, recordings, the complete will. Your case is airtight. What if they deny everything? They can't. The numbers don't lie. He tapped a folder thick with evidence. Jeffrey embezzled over $700,000. Lexi knowingly participated in fraud. Your parents enabled it. And Zachary? Clean. His distributions have been exactly what they should be. I thought about my younger brother, always quiet at family gatherings, always watching. He knew something was wrong. Smart kid. He stayed out of it. At 1:45 p.m, I walked into Jeffrey's office building. The elevator ride felt like ascending to my own execution, except I wasn't the one who was going to die today. The conference room was exactly as I'd imagined. Long mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Everyone was already there when I arrived. Jeffrey sat at the head of the table in his expensive suit, looking every inch the successful attorney. Mom and Dad flanked him on one side, both wearing their disappointed parent expressions. Lexi sat across from them, scrolling through her phone and looking bored. Zachary had claimed the chair farthest from everyone else. Skylar, Jeffrey said, standing to shake my hand. Thank you for coming. Thanks for finally agreeing to meet. Matthew Murphy sat near the windows with a legal pad, ready to take notes. Marcus entered behind me and took the seat next to mine. I wasn't aware you were bringing representation, Jeffrey said, his smile tightening. I wasn't aware I needed it, I replied. But here we are. Jeffrey gestured for everyone to sit. Well then, let's clear this up once and for all. Skylar, you've expressed concerns about your trust fund management. I want to address those concerns directly. Good. Let's start with the numbers. I pulled out my folder and placed it on the table. According to my records, over the past 3 years, I have received approximately $97,000 from the trust. That sounds about right. Jeffrey nodded. And Lexi has received $847,000. The room went silent. Lexi looked up from her phone. That can't be right, Mum said quickly. It's exactly right. I slid copies of the bank records across the table. Every transaction, every transfer, every business expense. Jeffrey's face had gone pale, but he maintained his composure. Lexi's situation is more complex. She has legitimate business expenses that require business expenses like an $85,000 BMW. That was a necessary investment in her brand. What about the $23,000 European vacation? Networking opportunities. The $18,000 shopping spree at Bergdorf's? Jeffrey's jaw tightened. I don't appreciate your tone, Skylar. And I don't appreciate being robbed by my own family. Nobody robbed you. Lexi finally spoke up. You're just jealous because I actually made something of myself. Made something of yourself? You're a professional Instagram poster living off stolen money. It's not stolen. Uncle Jeffrey approved everything. Did he approve you lying about expenses, making up fake business receipts? Lexi's face went red. I never... You told me yourself. Last week at the bar, you said you made up receipts and Jeffrey never checked. I was drunk, I didn't mean... So you admit you lied about expenses? That's not... Jeffrey, tell her. All eyes turned to Jeffrey, who was staring at the bank records like they might spontaneously combust. There may have been some irregularities in the documentation process, he said carefully. Irregularities? Marcus spoke for the first time. Mr. Jeffrey, you've systematically embezzled from one beneficiary to fund another's lifestyle. That's not an irregularity, that's fraud. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait. I stood up, my voice getting stronger. I've waited 3 years. I've worked 60-hour weeks while my sister bought sports cars. I've eaten ramen while she vacationed in Europe. I've been treated like a second-class citizen in my own family while you all got rich off my inheritance. Skylar, please, Dad said. Let's discuss this calmly. Calmly? Dad? They stole from me. Your brother stole from your daughter, and you did nothing. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. It was easy to let Jeffrey handle everything, while Lexi got whatever she wanted. Mum's voice was shaky. We thought Jeffrey was being fair. Fair, I laughed bitterly. When has anything in this family ever been fair to me? Zachary cleared his throat. Actually, I tried to tell you guys something was wrong. Everyone turned to look at him. Last Christmas, when Lexi showed up with that Cartier bracelet, I asked Jeffrey how she could afford it on her trust allowance. He told me to mind my own business. Zachary, you never said anything to us, Mum protested. Would you have listened? You never listen when it comes to Lexi. The room fell silent again. I could hear the city traffic 15 floors below, the hum of the air conditioning, the scratch of Matthew's pen on his legal pad. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling out another document. I'm invoking the integrity clause in Grandfather's will. Jeffrey's face went white. The what? The integrity clause, the one you conveniently forgot to mention. I began reading aloud. In the event of fraudulent or dishonest behaviour by any beneficiary, or the misuse of trust funds for purposes contrary to the grantor's intentions, said beneficiary shall forfeit their entire share of the trust. That's not... You can't... Jeffrey stammered. The forfeited amount shall be redistributed to the remaining honest beneficiaries, I continued. Lexi stood up so fast her chair fell over. What does that mean? I looked directly at her. My twin sister, my mirror image, the person who had taken everything from me. It means you lose it all, Lexi, every penny, and it all comes to me. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Jeffrey found his voice. You can't prove fraud. I smiled and pulled out my phone, setting it on the table. Actually, I can. I pressed play on Lexi's recorded confession from the bar. Her own voice filled the room. I just tell him what I need for business expenses, and he transfers it from the trust. No questions asked. Sometimes he asks for receipts, but honestly, I just make stuff up. Lexi's face crumpled. You recorded me? You recorded yourself. I was just there to listen. The recording kept playing, Lexi's voice echoing through the conference room like a confession at trial. Like, I'll say I spent $3,000 on a photo shoot, when really I bought shoes. He never checks. Jeffrey lunged for my phone, but Marcus was faster, grabbing his wrist. Don't, Marcus said quietly. You're in enough trouble already. Turn it off, bah! Lexi screamed. Turn it off right now! I let it play to the end, where her voice got even more damning. Jeffrey knows you don't need much. You're not building anything important. When it finished, the silence was suffocating. That recording is inadmissible, Jeffrey said, his lawyer instincts kicking in. She didn't consent to being recorded. Actually, she did, Marcus replied smoothly. This is a one-party consent state. Skylar was part of the conversation. It's entrapment. No, it's evidence. Evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud. Dad finally spoke up, his voice hollow. Jeffrey, please tell me this isn't true. Bryant, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been stealing from my daughter for 3 years? I wasn't stealing. I was managing the trust according to what I thought was best for both girls. Best for both girls? I slammed my hand on the table. How was giving Lexi nearly $1 million while I got scraps best for me? You're responsible. You don't need as much. That wasn't your decision to make. Mum was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Jeffrey, how could you do this to us? Charlotte, you have to understand. I understand perfectly, she sobbed. You destroyed our family. Lexi was pacing behind her chair, her face red and blotchy. This is insane. You can't take my money. It was never your money, I said. It was our grandfather's money, meant to be distributed equally. I earned it. I built a brand. I have followers. You built a lie funded by theft. I'm not a thief. I pulled out another document. Really? Because according to this credit card statement, you charged $15,000 in business meals to the trust last month. But according to your Instagram posts, you were home sick with the flu for 2 weeks. Lexi's mouth opened and closed like a fish. And this receipt for a marketing consultation that was actually a spa weekend in Napa. Those were legitimate. Stop lying, Zachary exploded, speaking louder than I'd ever heard him. Just stop. We all know what you did. Everyone stared at him. Our quiet little brother, finally finding his voice. I've watched this family tear itself apart for 3 years, he continued. I've watched Skylar work herself to death while Lexi bought cars and jewellery. I've watched Mum and Dad pretend everything was fine while their daughter was being robbed blind. Zachary, please, Mum started. No, I'm done being quiet. Lexi is a fraud, Jeffrey is a criminal, and you two are enablers. How dare you speak to your parents that way? Dad stood up, his face flushed. How dare you let this happen to Skylar? The room erupted. Everyone was shouting at once. Jeffrey was yelling about legal technicalities. Lexi was screaming about being betrayed. Mum was sobbing about her family falling apart. Dad was demanding respect. I sat in the middle of it all, watching my family destroy itself, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Marcus stood up and whistled sharply. The room fell silent. If I may, he said calmly, we have a legal situation here that needs to be addressed. He pulled out a thick folder. These are the papers to invoke the integrity clause. Based on the evidence we've presented, fraudulent expense reports, recorded admissions of deception, and systematic embezzlement, Lexi has violated the terms of the trust. You can't do this, Jeffrey said desperately. I'm the executor. I have final say. Actually, you don't? Marcus smiled. The integrity clause supersedes executor authority. And given your participation in the fraud, you're facing criminal charges. Criminal charges? Mum gasped. Embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, conspiracy to commit fraud. The DA is going to love this case. Jeffrey's face went grey. Now wait, let's not be hasty. Hasty? I stood up again. 3 years of theft is hasty. Skylar, please, we can work this out, Dad pleaded. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other. We can pay you back, Mum said through her tears. Jeffrey can transfer more money to your account. With what money? Lexi's already spent most of it. Lexi finally stopped pacing. I can sell things. The car, the jewelry. The car you can't afford the payments on? The jewelry you bought with stolen money? It's not stolen. Then explain this. I pulled out the final document, Jeffrey's own financial records. Your uncle has been taking a management fee of 15% on every fraudulent transaction. He's made over $100,000 helping you steal from me. The room went dead silent. Jeffrey's shoulders sagged. Skylar, just don't. I looked around the table at my family. My crying mother, my defeated father, my panicked sister, my furious uncle. Only Zachary met my eyes, and he nodded slightly. Here's what's going to happen, I said. Marcus is filing the paperwork to invoke the integrity clause today. Lexi's share of the trust, all of it, transfers to me immediately. That's over $2 million, Matthew said quietly, speaking for the first time since the meeting started. That's what she would have inherited at 30, plus what she's already stolen, plus interest. Skylar, you can't... Lexi started. I can, and I will. Jeffrey, you're being reported to the state bar and the district attorney. Your law license is gone, and you'll probably face jail time. Jeffrey slumped in his chair like a deflated balloon. Mum, Dad, your precious daughter is about to be cut off completely. No more trust fund, no more family money, no more enabling her lifestyle. What about us? Dad asked quietly. What about you? You chose your side 3 years ago. I gathered my documents and stood up. Marcus followed suit. The paperwork will be filed by close of business today, I said. Lexi's accounts will be frozen pending the transfer. Jeffrey's access to the trust is revoked immediately. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Lexi? You might want to start looking for a real job. Instagram doesn't pay the bills. As I reached for the door handle, Zachary's voice stopped me. Skylar, wait. I turned back to my little brother. Did it feel worth it? I looked at my family one last time, broken, crying, destroyed by their own greed. Ask me tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Skylar, please call me back. We need to talk. Mum, you've destroyed our family. Dad, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Lexi, the bank froze my accounts. How am I supposed to pay rent? Lexi again, please don't do this. I'm begging you. Jeffrey. I deleted them all and made coffee in my tiny kitchen. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't calculating whether I could afford the good beans. Marcus called at 8 a.m. sharp. It's done, he said. The paperwork went through. As of this morning, you're the sole beneficiary of the remaining trust funds. How much? $2.7 million. I sat down hard on my couch. Jesus. That's after legal fees and penalties. Lexi's accounts are frozen. Jeffrey's been suspended pending investigation, and the DA wants to meet with you next week. What about my family? What about them? They made their choices. An hour later, someone was pounding on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Lexi, still in yesterday's clothes, her makeup smeared and her hair a mess. Open the door, Skylar. I know you're in there. I opened it, and she pushed past me into my apartment. You have to fix this, she said, spinning around to face me. The bank called. They froze everything. My credit cards, my checking account, everything. I know. I can't pay my rent, I can't buy groceries, I can't even get gas for my car. Welcome to my world. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. This isn't funny. You're right, it's not funny, it's justice. Justice? You're destroying my life. I'm giving you the life you gave me. Lexi started crying. The ugly kind of crying that comes with real desperation. Skylar, please. I'm your sister. Are you? Because sisters don't steal from each other. I didn't steal. Jeffrey said it was okay. Jeffrey said fraud was okay, and you went along with it because it benefited you. She collapsed onto my couch, sobbing. What am I supposed to do? I don't know how to live like this. Get a job, like normal people. Doing what? I don't have any skills. Then learn some. Take classes, work retail, wait tables, figure it out. I can't work retail. Do you know who I am? Yeah, you're a broke 28-year-old with no job skills and a criminal record pending. She looked up at me, mascara streaking down her face. Criminal record? You committed fraud, Lexi. The DA is building a case. But I didn't know. You knew. The recording proves you knew. My phone rang. It was Dad. Don't answer it, Lexi begged. I answered anyway. Hi, Dad. Skylar, thank God. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can you come to the house? Why? Jeffrey's here. He wants to make a deal. I looked at Lexi, still crying on my couch. What kind of deal? He'll return the management fees he took. $120,000. In exchange, you drop the criminal charges. And Lexi? She'll pay back what she can. Sell the car, the jewelry, everything. That won't even cover 10% of what she stole. It's a start. Please, Skylar, he's family. So am I hung up and looked at Lexi. Jeffrey wants to make a deal. What kind of deal? He'll give back his cut if I don't press charges. Hope flickered in her eyes. And me? You sell everything and pay back what you can. But that's not enough to cover. No, it's not. She was quiet for a long moment. What if I can't pay it all back? Then you'll owe me for the rest of your life. That's not fair, I laughed, actually laughed. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I made mistakes, okay? But I don't deserve to lose everything. I made no mistakes, and I lost everything anyway. That's different. How? Because... She couldn't finish the sentence. Because you're the favourite. Because you're the pretty one, the charming one, the one who deserves nice things. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. It's what this whole family has always meant. My phone buzzed with a text from Zachary. Are you okay? I texted back, getting there. Can I see you later? He replied. Yes. Lexi was watching me text. Is that Zachary? Yeah. Is he mad at me too? What do you think? She started crying again. I've lost everyone. You lost everyone the day you decided to steal from me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? 100,000? 500,000? When was enough going to be enough? She didn't answer because we both knew the truth. It never would have been enough. I need to go, she said finally, standing up. Where? I don't know. Figure out how to survive, I guess. She walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. After she left, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by silence. My phone kept buzzing with calls and texts from family members, but I ignored them all. At 6 p.m, Zachary knocked on my door. I let him in, and he looked around my tiny studio apartment. This is where you've been living? For 3 years. While Lexi had that penthouse. Yep. He sat down on my couch in the same spot where Lexi had been crying hours earlier. Mom and Dad are freaking out. I imagine they are. Jeffrey's talking about bankruptcy. Says the legal fees will ruin him. Good. Lexi's moving back in with them. She can't afford her apartment. Also good. Zachary was quiet for a moment. Do you feel better now? I thought about it. I feel vindicated. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. Are you going to take Jeffrey's deal? I don't know yet. What would Grandfather want you to do? I looked at the framed photo of him on my bookshelf. He'd want justice. Is this justice, or is this revenge? What's the difference? Zachary met my eyes. Justice restores balance. Revenge destroys everything. I didn't have an answer for that. 3 weeks after the family meeting, I stood in Jeffrey's office again. This time, he looked like a broken man. Wrinkled shirt, unshaven face. The kind of desperation that comes from watching your entire life crumble. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice hoarse. Marcus sat beside me, briefcase full of legal documents. Across the table, Jeffrey's own lawyer looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Let's get this over with, I said. Jeffrey slid a cashier's check across the table. $120,000, every penny I took in management fees. I picked up the check, studying the numbers. This doesn't cover the interest you earned on stolen money. It's everything I have left. The state bar froze my other accounts pending the ethics investigation. What about the criminal charges? Jeffrey's lawyer cleared his throat. My client is prepared to plead guilty to breach of fiduciary duty in exchange for probation and restitution. No jail time? He's a first-time offender. White-collar crime. The DA is willing to deal? I looked at Jeffrey. This man who'd helped raise me, who'd bounced me on his knee as a child, who'd systematically robbed me for 3 years. What about Lexi? She's cooperating fully. Sold the car, the jewellery, everything. The proceeds go to you. How much? $47,000. I did the math in my head. Even with Jeffrey's restitution and Lexi's liquidated assets, I was still owed over $500,000. That's not enough. It's all we have, Jeffrey said quietly. Then Lexi owes me the rest, with interest. She can't pay what she doesn't have. Then she'll work for it. Minimum wage, every paycheck garnished until the debt is paid. Jeffrey's face crumpled. That could take decades. Should have thought of that before you helped her steal from me. Marcus leaned forward. There is another option. Everyone looked at him. Skylar could forgive the remaining debt in exchange for a public apology and admission of guilt. Absolutely not, I said immediately. Hear me out. Jeffrey pleads guilty, loses his law license, pays restitution. Lexi makes a public statement admitting to fraud, apologizing, and warning others about the consequences of financial crimes. And then what? They walk away clean. They walk away broke and humiliated. Jeffrey will never practice law again. Lexi's reputation is destroyed. They'll both struggle financially for years. I thought about it. What kind of public statement? Social media, local news, whatever platform she used to build her brand, she uses to confess her crimes. Jeffrey looked desperate. Skylar, please. She's learned her lesson. Has she? Before he could answer, my phone rang. It was Fatima. I'm in a meeting, I answered. Turn on Channel 7, now. I hung up and looked at Marcus. Can you pull up Channel 7 on your phone? He found the live stream. The reporter was standing outside a familiar downtown building. Exclusive interview with social media influencer Lexi, who claims she's the victim of a family conspiracy. My blood went cold. There was Lexi, perfectly made up, standing in front of the news van. My sister has always been jealous of my success, she was saying to the camera. She's using legal technicalities to steal my inheritance because she can't stand that I built something beautiful while she stayed bitter and small. You've got to be kidding me, Marcus muttered. The reporter asked, What about the allegations of fraud? Complete lies. My uncle managed my trust fund legally and appropriately. My sister is trying to destroy my family because she's never been able to accept that some people are just more talented than others. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. She's doing a press conference? Jeffrey was staring at the phone screen in horror. Lexi, what are you doing? On screen, Lexi continued. I'm the victim here. I'm the one whose accounts were frozen without warning. I'm the one being persecuted for being successful. Turn it off, Jeffrey begged. But I couldn't look away. Keep watching. The reporter pressed harder. But there are recordings of you admitting to falsifying business expenses. Lexi's perfect composure cracked slightly. Those recordings were taken without my consent. My sister tricked me when I was drunk and emotional. So you deny making false claims about business expenses? The expenses were legitimate business costs. Just because my sister doesn't understand social media marketing doesn't make them fraudulent. What about the BMW purchased with trust funds? A necessary business investment. Image is everything in my industry. I looked at Jeffrey. She's lying on television. Lexi, stop, he whispered to the screen. But Lexi was on a roll now. My grandfather left that money to help us build meaningful lives. I built a brand with hundreds of thousands of followers. I created content that inspired people. My sister worked at a coffee shop. The reporter asked, Are you saying your sister doesn't deserve her share of the inheritance? I'm saying some people use opportunities to build something beautiful, and others use them to tear down what others have built. I turned to Jeffrey. The deal's off. Skylar, please. She just lied to the entire city on live television, called me jealous and bitter, claimed she's the victim. She's scared. She's not thinking clearly. She's thinking clearly enough to do her makeup and call a press conference. Marcus was already packing up his briefcase. I'll file the paperwork to reject the plea deal. Wait, Jeffrey said desperately. What if I can get her to retract the statement? Too late. It's already online. Probably going viral as we speak. My phone was buzzing with notifications. Text messages, missed calls, social media alerts. She made her choice, I said. Now she lives with the consequences. Jeffrey's lawyer stood up. My client withdraws his offer. Smart move, Marcus replied. Because we're going for the full amount now, plus punitive damages for defamation. As we left the office, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction or vindication. Relief. For 3 years, I'd wondered if I was crazy. If maybe I really was just jealous and bitter. If maybe Lexi really did deserve more because she was prettier, more charming, more likable. But watching her lie on television, watching her paint herself as the victim while calling me small and jealous, I finally understood the truth. This was who she'd always been. This was who they'd all always been. And I was done pretending otherwise. Marcus and I walked to the parking garage in comfortable silence. Finally, he spoke. You know this means war, right? No more family dinners. No more Christmas mornings. They'll never forgive you. I thought about Zachary's question. Did it feel worth it? Good, I said. I don't want their forgiveness. I want my life back. That evening, I sat in my apartment with my laptop, typing. Ater for destroying my family over a trust fund. Here's the whole story. I posted it to Reddit and closed the laptop. Within an hour, I had hundreds of responses. NTA. They literally stole from you. Your sister sounds like a narcissist. You're a badass. Get your money. Family doesn't mean you have to accept abuse. I smiled and made myself dinner. Real food, not ramen. Tomorrow, I'd start looking for a new apartment. Maybe something with actual windows. My phone rang. Zachary. I saw the news, he said. And? Lexi's an idiot. Yeah, she is. Are you okay? I looked around my tiny studio, at the life I'd built from nothing, while my family tried to keep me small. I'm perfect. And for the first time in 3 years, I meant it.